Imagine a teenage boy with a buzz cut. In many ways, he resembles some nerd's high school bully. He's stocky, but athletic, and often has a mocking grin on his face, with teeth that are too big for his mouth. Dressed in an ill-fitting suit, he cannot be found playing soccer with the other boys in his Catholic school's gymnasium. Instead, he's up in the library, hungrily devouring history books that will completely change how he views the world. Under the nose of Jesuit priests, he is laying the foundations that will, for him, disprove God. Back at my lessons, I was taught classical history. The epic stories of Achilles and Odysseus were my favorite. Going on to university, the classics became my bread and butter. I dove headlong into studying archaeology in tandem with epic poetry. How could these two worlds be related? Surely the myths of the past were nothing but allegory. To the mind of a young college atheist, the stories of Zeus, Heracles, and Achilles were like the stories of Jesus that I grew up with. Moral tales, not meant to be taken literally. Over a century ago, however, early generations of archaeologists posited a groundbreaking theory. What if Greek myths were based on historical events? What if the Greeks viewed the Trojan War and Achilles like how we viewed the Exodus and Moses? An actual history shrouded and lost to the mists of time. Based on this, archaeologies like Heinrich Schliemann and Sir Arthur Evans went about unearthing unimaginable discoveries. First Ilium, the mythical city of Troy, was found. Treasures thought to belong to Helen, along with charcoal smears and bronze arrowheads embedded in tower walls, were evidence enough of a possible historical Trojan War. Then was found Mycenae, home of Agamemnon, and then Pylos, with warriors' graves filled with long bronze swords. A massive palace complex on the Isle of Crete was later excavated. The labyrinth-like structure could only have been home to King Minos and the Minotaur. Soon, two new civilizations had been uncovered, the Mycenaeans and the Minoans. Myth had become history. As I further studied the Bronze Age world, a nagging question began to take hold. Can we treat the Bible the same way? Could Noah have possibly survived an apocalyptic flood? Did Moses actually lead a nation across the desert to a land of milk and honey? Did a shepherd boy named David really slay a Philistine giant named Goliath? And if these stories had any truth to them at all, what role did the God I grew up with play in all of this? I am still a Catholic, but when asked if I believe in God, I tend to say, only when I'm fishing and I haven't caught anything all day. If I were asked a more specific question, do you believe in the Christian God? I would struggle. What do you mean? Do you mean the God who created Adam and Eve? I believe in the science of evolution, and that humanity can be traced back to our Australopithecine ancestors, those little upright apes that used rudimentary tools. Perhaps you mean Yahweh, the God of Moses, who freed the enslaved Israelites from Pharaoh's bondage in Egypt. But actually, we know quite a bit about ancient Egypt. Skilled workers were given wages of bread. The higher up a laborer or craftsman or construction manager was on the pay scale, the more and better quality bread he would get. The archaeological evidence for Israelites even being in Egypt is scant. Sure, West Asians known as the Hyksos founded their own dynasty on the Nile Delta. And we have further evidence of other Canaanite groups that can be found in Egypt or in Egyptian-controlled territory. In the Sinai Peninsula, for example, carved on the walls of jade mines, can be found graffiti inscribed in an ancient Canaanite language that is possibly the ancestor to ancient Hebrew? Do you believe in the God who led his people into Canaan, who brought down the walls of Jericho, who David devoted psalms to, and who Solomon devoted the temple to? Did any of these events even happen? Where does the religion blend into history, and history into the religion? That is what these lectures will attempt to understand. What happens when we look at our own myths in the same way we look at the mythologies of other ancient peoples? Where the crossroads of history and myth meet, truth can perhaps be found. In analyzing the Bible as a historical source, we can attempt to better understand the ancient world. We can try to understand how and why this pivotal document developed. We can look at how this was a history, a codex of laws, a work of moral philosophy. Some of the Bible may simply be entertainment, with lessons skillfully woven into the narrative, like an ancient Judean The Lord of the Rings. This set of lectures will examine the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, in their historical context. We will interpret what these stories tell us about the history it records, as well as the contemporary historical context in which it was written. Some of what we look at may be controversial. Some of it may be contradictory, or disproven, or based on scrap pieces of evidence. We may even border on the conspiratorial. That'll be fun. But I assure you that the journey we are about to embark on is one of better understanding the past, both in terms of what happened and in terms of how the ancients could have understood it. Welcome to the Biblical series.